Topping today's news, the immigration minister refutes allegations by migrants of an Abaco shantytown of mistreatment. The prime minister meets with women's rights groups angry over comments by Press Secretary Watson. The CEO of Fusion Superplex weighs in on the increased minimum wage and the look at the first quarter import-export numbers for 2022. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jcn News Oct. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Minister of Immigration Keith Bell denying claims made by migrants living in shantytowns on Abaco that they were mishandled during a recent raid carried out by law enforcement officers, including the Department of Immigration, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Minister Bell says the joint effort saw all officers carry out their duties with due diligence.
From all indications that was reported to me, there was no mishandling. The officers, that is the Immigration Department, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and the officers from the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, it was a joint operation. I did not receive any reports or complaints. There is a grievance process, and I would indicate to all that if there is a grievance, then of course I have an open door policy, as well as the Director of Immigration is always available to hear complaints and address concerns. The idea and the objective is, when we do these raids, is to ensure that we treat everyone with common decency and humanity and respect. And a number of senior officers from Immigration, Defense, and the police were present during those raids. And so therefore, they would have reported to me that there was no breaches, there were no abuses whatsoever.
The expedition found that one shantytown in particular, the farm, has grown from 50 acres to 200 acres since Hurricane Dorian. Other shantytowns, including a large area in Marsh Harbor, have also grown exponentially. With the Supreme Court injunction still in effect banning the government from further demolishing shantytowns in Abaco, the immigration minister affirms that nothing will be done in that regard, as there were claims of residents of the shanty towns.
I've communicated with both the Attorney General and the Minister of Works. As you would appreciate, construction and illegal construction comes under the remit of the Minister of Works, not the Minister of Immigration. And I think that he has indicated that he has formed a committee and they are going to report him eminently determine the way forward. This is something obviously that is ongoing. It was happening before I got there, and it is just continuous. We want to ensure that we protect our borders, we keep the Bahamas for Bahamians, and we want to ensure that anyone coming to the Bahamas through illegal means, that we ensure that we detain them, arrest them, detain them, there's due process, and that they're repatriated as quickly as possible.
According to Minister Bell, there have been more than 2,400 foreign nationals repatriated so far this year. The majority of them are from Haiti. Women's rights groups had an audience with Prime Minister Philip Davis on Tuesday evening. The Prime Minister met with representatives of women's rights groups on the heels of his press secretary, Clint Watson, commenting last Friday that activist groups' voices have been silent on matters concerning marital rape and sexual abuse. The Prime Minister told the Women United, Women of Strength Association, the Bahamas Urban Youth Development Center, Everyone Counts Organization, Women's Investments Group, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, and the Aaron Brown Connects Group that Mr. Watson was misinformed about the extent of the consultation and has set the record straight after issuing an apology on Tuesday. In a statement on Wednesday, the Prime Minister said the activists understood and accepted that those comments were made in error, further noting that by the time of the meeting, the press secretary had already issued a full apology. Add to that, the Attorney General has been clear that women's groups have played an important role during consultations, and officials are grateful for their engagement. The Prime Minister concluded his statement, noting that marital rape is an issue that the Bahamas has been grappling with for a long time. He says that work to build progress on this issue and on other difficult issues requires all of society to engage in continued consultation and dialogue. So says leader of the official opposition, Michael Pintard, during a back and forth between the government and the official opposition in the House of Assembly on Wednesday. Mr. Pintard accused the Davis administration of consistently backpedaling on decisions, often after receiving backlash of said decisions. During Mr. Pintard's contribution on the bill for an act to repeal and replace the Law Reform and Revision Act, he spoke on a number of matters since the PLP came into power a year ago. such as the decision and timing of the raising of minimum wage from $210 to $260. He further accused the Davis administration of not consulting stakeholders before adding new items to the price control list. Mr. Pintard also suggests that value-added tax should be removed from the new list of items that are now on price control.
They moonwalk on a regular basis back from decisions made when the pressure gets hot. And right now the pressure tall on these roads. It's tall.
The opposition leader reiterated his criticism of the government misspending and lack of financial reporting, which led to the Bahamas being blacklisted on a blacklist by the European Union and the downgrade by Moody's. He further accused the government of living large at the people's expense, and in reference to the government's traveling expenses. To this, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Public Service Fred Mitchell says the government's accounts do not reflect what the opposition leader is saying.
I saw one of his former colleagues enthusiastically on video this morning going on about how the runaway spending and how things are running behind and all the rest of the year. The finance people assure me the revenues are up and the spending is down. Revenues are up and spending down. I say it again, revenues are up and spending down.
The opposition leader requested the official accounting and documentation of Minister Mitchell's claims of revenues increasing and spending decreasing. Meanwhile, Minister of Social Services and Urban Development O.B. Wilshcombe took time to respond to Mr. Pintard, who was critical of Press Secretary Clint Watson's comments regarding the lack of effort by women advocacy groups in the debate on marital rape and sexual abuse.
This government failed to conduct studies. You're making a life-changing decision for businesses and consumers and don't even bother to conduct a study to determine what the potential impact is. In much the same way, they have not conducted studies to determine some of the other decisions they have made and how it will affect the consumer or businesses later on. So this government gets to make mistakes and then challenge the business community to bear the responsibility, to shoulder the responsibility of paying for the mistakes. That's why people have problems with policymakers in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We get to go ahead and make the mistakes, but then we want to tax some other folks in order to pay for it. Well, the public clearly sees through this.
Mr. Pintard contends that statements from the Office of the Prime Minister should only leave the Office of the Prime Minister if sanctioned by policymakers and not off-the-cuff comments like those made by the press secretary. During the debate in the House of Assembly on Wednesday to repeal and replace the Law Reform and Revision Act in an effort to satisfy the European Union's automatic exchange of financial information regulations to prevent tax evasion, leader of the official opposition, Michael Pintard, noted that other countries like Switzerland have utilized the international agreement to share many of the data on people of other countries registered in their jurisdiction. With that said, Mr. Pintard asked the government the following intriguing question about Bahamian politicians possibly having Swiss bank accounts with large sums of money stashed away.
We would like to ask the government if in the wrap-up it is in a position to say whether or not we have received information from Switzerland on Bahamian nationals who have funds deposited in Swiss accounts. Are there any members of government or persons in the Parliament of the Bahamas who are included among those persons who have deposited funds? And what is the understanding of the circumstances under which those funds have been deposited?
Mr. Pintard said Swiss banks have shared information on nationals from approximately 101 countries who have deposited funds in their jurisdiction. He noted that as the Bahamas is now compliant with the European Union's agreement for automatic exchange of financial information, the government should be able and willing to answer his question. However, he informed JCN that the government did not answer the question in their wrap-up on Wednesday evening. The 16th annual Exuma Business Outlook is underway at the Grand Isle Resort in Georgetown, Exuma, with the aim of bringing together national, social, and economic leaders to address current challenges and opportunities relevant to Exuma and its surrounding keys. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments, and Aviation Chester Cooper, in his keynote address, highlighted the government's efforts to boost tourism numbers in the Exumas. He predicts by year-end the country will match the record set in 2019.
In terms of Exuma, we have approved over $1.2 billion in new investments since coming to office. That's right, $1.2 billion for Exuma alone. These are projects that have been fully vetted by the Bahamas Investment Authority and have proof of financing. We've approved the development and operations of a new resort destination, marina, airport, and golf course on one of our keys. That spend on this project will exceed $150 million. We've also approved the U.S. group to acquire Rocas Point Estates, a 58-acre property that's been stalled. We're going to ensure that built here is a resort and a marina development. That project will consist of at least 50 residences and 65 boat slips adjacent to the residences.
Mr. Cooper says the government will renovate all structures on Little Sampson Key and Middle Sampson Key, including houses, docks, and marinas.
Big Sampson Key will also see the development of a private resort and marina. That project represents an investment of $150 million. There's an application to develop even further Little Fowl Key with a unique, high-end, and environmentally sustainable private island boutique resort. This project will see over $11 million invested. On Elizabeth Island, as you've heard, an investor is developing a unique zero-carbon integrated residence and yacht resort community. On this 35-acre tract, they will construct 28 detached, ultra-low impact solar-powered residences ranging from 3 to 6 bedrooms. This represents another $56 million of investments. We've also approved a $3 million development project for a boutique resort on Staniel Key and a $170 million development in Hall Key in the Little Exuma area.
On May 7, 2021, the previous administration broke ground on a new international airport for Exuma with a $65 million contract. DPM Cooper says when the Davis administration came into office, the contractor was owed over $10 million in delayed funds, but noted that works will resume on the airport this month. The Deputy Prime Minister added that 7 miles of new roads have already been completed on the island, with 12 miles left to be done before Christmas.
We do have challenges in Exuma, but we have limitless potential. If we take care of one another, if we seek to keep our communities clean, safe, and revitalize them, then we will always be the most special place on planet Earth. As I told you last year, no matter where I go, no matter how important the assignment, Exuma remains my priority because Exuma is my home. I'm always working to advance it, and I will do everything in my power to make Exuma the best place to visit, to live, and to work, and to thrive in the Bahamas.
Mr. Cooper is calling on all hotels on Exuma to build more rooms and for residents to open their homes to tourists and build more vacation rentals as tourism numbers continue to increase on the island. And finally, in this segment, since Prime Minister Philip Davis announced the minimum wage rise from $210 to $260 to be implemented in January of 2023, there has been some backlash from the business sector. Jcn News got a chance to speak with Fusion Superplex CEO Carlos Folks, who says he is all for increasing minimum wage because at one point he himself was at that income level. However, he questions the timing of the increase, especially following an increase in electricity that could cost his company an additional $500,000 annually, and an increase in inventory costs due to supply chain and shipping issues, which can result in profits being at risk of completely disappearing.
Well, we have been hearing about the minimum wage rise for some months, and we were anticipating that it would be coming. I will admit I did not anticipate we would be dealing with it this soon. And in the wake of the BPL increase in the fuel rate, it seems like just another blow to the local business establishments. And labor is a major cost. It's a big cost for Fusion Superflex. In fact, it's our #1 cost. And to see the minimum wage go up at this time will be a difficult thing to manage. We are going to be managing a 40% plus hike in the electrical billing. And in addition to that, we have seen inventory and supplies and cost of goods sold. They have went through the roof ever since in the wake of the COVID and the shipping crisis and the shortage of goods and services. We have seen a spike in the supply of food products and cleaning products.
Mr. Folk says Fusion Superplex is preparing for the increase by looking at labor techniques, support technologies, and increasing efficiency and services. He says the goal is to make the necessary adjustments without having to let any staff go, although employees may have to go from full-time to part-time or temporary. Mr. Folk says he understands the Prime Minister's efforts in reaching an equilibrium.
Well, there's a balancing act in making these economic decisions, and I think the Prime Minister of the Bahamas has a very tough job, and this is to find that point where the businesses can survive the increase, but also do it in such a way that it's of reasonable benefit to the average Bahamian citizen. And if income goes up, that balancing point is I should also see more spending in the economy so people can come out more. So if I can see a slight rise in the attendance because I have more disposable income, perhaps we can have an increase in revenue at the same time that there is an increase in the minimum wage.
Mr. Folk says although he is tasked with making Fusion Superplex remain a successful business, he understands the plight of the everyday Bahamian trying to make ends meet.
And I also, I used to be a minimum wage worker. I remember I used to make $150 a week. It was difficult to survive on such a low number, such a low income. By the time you get around to paying the rent for the month, you have very little left to do anything else, much less save. And I wholeheartedly believe Bahamians should be saving as much as they can, at least 10% of their income a month if possible. But if you don't have enough to buy the supplies just to have grocery in the house, how can you even get around to saving money, all right? So I'm in support of a general minimum wage because there is the issue of inflation. I'm in support of correcting these anomalies in the economy. Timing, however, is an issue for the business.
Mr. Folk says they have not made any decisions as yet, but he expects everything to be in place by January 2023. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.
Now, I know I've said it before, but this time, I swear it's different. Grammy dreamed about this number, so I won't lose. I can't lose. This is my last time. Please, son, just give me one more chance. I'll give it all back to you.
Excessive gaming affects more than just the gamer. This message has been brought to you by the Gaming Board for the Bahamas, which encourages you to game responsibly.
Problem gambling and addiction has many faces. You never really know you have a problem until it has overtaken you. You just keep on making excuses. You could be down to your last dollar and listen to that voice that tells you you might just hit one big number or even a lucky spin. Before you know it, you begin chasing your losses and borrowing money from your friends, family, and even strangers. The next thing you know, you are using the money for your rent or electricity bill. Then when you become so desperate, it's the children's school fees, lunch that is being used to feed the addiction. It just doesn't stop. No matter how much you lose or how many people you hurt, you're the last person to admit that you have an illness. You are in constant denial, lying to yourself and playing the blame game. They don't understand. They don't get it. Everyone is always judging me. You stress me out and cause me to gamble. You become your own worst enemy without even realizing it. It wasn't until I lost the trust of everyone that was there for me and was completely alone that I can see that something had to change. I really needed help. I just couldn't do it on my own. If you or anyone else you know needs help, please call the numbers on your screen. Remember, hope and help is available. Call today.
Shell Unleaded improves your fuel economy, giving increased miles per gallon, allowing you to do more of what you really want. Special additives used in Shell Unleaded improve your engine's efficiency. So go further with Shell Unleaded. Venture out to beaches, Junkanoo, and festivals and bring home memories that will last a lifetime. Shell, fueling journeys that matter.
Marlin Marine and Generac have the standby generator that fits your needs. Conserve power by using only 1 or 2 circuits during an outage with our 7.5 kilowatt, or manage your power usage with our 10 to 16 kilowatt standby. But why only power part of the house? Get whole house protection with our 20 kilowatt Generac standby and never lose power again. Give us a call at 393-7873 and get the right unit for you. Marlin Marine, giving you power on land and sea.
Kids, let's go! Sean, what are you doing?
I solved it. We'll buy our life insurance policy from this company and then go over here and get our home insurance. Then get our motor policy from right over here.
Or we could just get it all with CG Atlantic. Save a lot of money and effort.
They do it all? Even pensions?
Even pensions.
We're like a husband that doesn't overcomplicate everything. CG Atlantic. Good like that.
Did you know that as a farmer registered with the Department of Agriculture, you can access duty-free concessions for imported items to be used on your farm? That means you can bring in farming tools and materials duty-free. Some examples of those items covered under this concession include packing materials, produce boxes, seeds, fertilizer, water pumps, fencing materials, and hydroponic systems. For more information on any of these incentives, please call the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family Island Affairs at 397-7400. That's 397-7400. For additional updates, you can follow the ministry on social media at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at MOAMRFIA Bahamas, where you can find weekly episodes of our Good to Grow segment, as well as our Good to Grow podcast. Did you know that registering your farm with the Department of Agriculture is currently free of charge? It comes with a wide range of benefits, such as assistance with feeder farm roads, land clearing, and tractor services, assistance with Department of Immigration for obtaining foreign farm labor at a reduced permit fee, access to fish and farm stores for agricultural input supplies, sale of produce at packing house, produce exchange, abattoir services at a reduced price, training at the Food Technology Laboratories, disaster relief assistance, and free veterinary extension services. For more information on any of these incentives, please call the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family Island Affairs at 397-7400. That's 397-7400. For additional updates, you can follow the ministry on social media at MOAMRFIA Bahamas,